Ladies and gentlemen, woo! Well, I hope you get to see the debate. I don't know if you will. They look like such damn fools. I don't know if you'll get to see it. I really hope you will. I'm going to be getting in touch with Victor here. Victor had to leave the debate. It descended into a situation with the moderator screaming at me endlessly and wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise, and Victor finally left. And the moderator attacking me and telling me I'm a statist and telling me that I defend force and I defend cops beating people up, and it was a disaster. So they look like the goddamn fools that they always do, because they are anarchists. I asked him several times to put the link over in the chat on the side so I could share it to my audience. He said, "Oh yeah, good idea, and just never did. Now, I think the reason he did that was in case it went off the rails and he doesn't want to publish it. So, if that's the case, I doubt he's going to publish it, and I'm afraid you folks aren't going to get to see it. But it wasn't like a super great thing. It was just the anarchists looking like goddamn fools. I will tell you a few of the points that I made just because you might not get to see them otherwise, and they're fresh in my mind. So I started off just by giving Ayn Rand's basic idea of philosophy and the individual in the universe. And then I said the Greeks, when they put a cup of water down somewhere, and when we put a cup of water down somewhere, it's the same phenomenon. It's gravity. The Greeks did not understand that phenomenon. And the Greeks, therefore, weren't able to do the things that we are able to do because we understand gravity. It's the same phenomenon. It's right in front of you. But being able to understand it gives you power over it. So, that's the first thing. Being able to conceive of something is very powerful. Secondly, an example of conceiving of something. You would not take somebody seriously if they said, "I'm going to go fly my airplane." And you would say, "Where's your airplane? I don't see an airplane." And they would say, "I don't need to build it. I don't need to design it. I'm just going to fly it." You wouldn't take such a person seriously. However, the anarchists don't worry about the fact they exist and about the fact they have a mind. They skip right to the question of how they should deal with other people. And that is like saying that they're going to fly an airplane before they've designed or built it. Now my last point before we went into our discussion was that the Greeks addressed this situation more than 2,000 years ago when the king of Persia asked someone in his court, a visiting Greek, said, "Who is set as despot over the Greeks? Who do they take orders from?" And the visiting Greek said, "My lord, the Greeks obey only the law. They obey no man." And so the Greeks discovered freedom. They knew that freedom is based on the law. And every society ever since then that has had any inkling of freedom is based on the law, and they use the law to banish force. Huron Brooke made the point that he would rather live in a communist society than in anarchy, and I agree with him. In a communist society, there are at least police walking around. If somebody comes with a gun and starts shooting people, the police will shoot them. If somebody's murdering prostitutes or something in the park, the police are going to be combing the park and getting evidence. You know, that really happened in Moscow. You know, people could not go around robbing people in Moscow. Now, the government systematically robbed, and I'm not defending communism, of course, I'm an objectivist, I'm Ayn Rand. But the idea that the law does anything besides banishing force, of course it's abused, right? But we have to have protections against its abuse. All right, we have to be able to elect officials, and we have to be able to investigate, and if an official breaks the law, he'll go to jail, right? Nixon broke a law, out of office. Obama and Hillary broke laws, well, bad example. Okay. Now, I asked Victor to define what exactly it is about the government that he doesn't like, which part of the government he doesn't like, and he said the initiation of force, right? So he's on track with the objectivist state then, okay. And then I asked him to define free market, and he couldn't ultimately get there because there's the question of if somebody uses force, who will arbitrate that? And so he couldn't define free market. Now, it's very important because the anarchists want a free market in order for their governments to compete. But what is the free market? What is that? And once you try to define it, you'll discover that there is no free market without an overarching authority who stops people from dealing with each other using physical force. So the free market is something that happens underneath a system where people are not allowed to use physical force. We also got into voluntary taxation. That's what Bennet, the host, really lost his bananas on. Voluntary taxation. Because I said the government should be funded voluntarily. And he just couldn't get his head around that. And then I said, well, what about churches? You know, they're voluntary. Like all the churches that are built are voluntarily funded. So isn't that an example? And so then he just ridiculed me for trying to equate taxation with tithing. He said people coming and taking money from people against their will and people giving money voluntarily, how can you equate those two? Blew his hippie noodle. So he can't even conceive of voluntary taxation. So it was a disaster. If it goes public, you know, the more I think about it, the less likely I think it is. I really doubt he's going to publish it. But we'll see. If he does, I'm going to put it up on Facebook. I'll put links to it. I'll put a link to it below this video. So look below this video. And if this video has been up for more than 10 or 15 minutes, then I should have the link up there. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Did the first debate. Disaster! They look like fools. I mean, I look fine. I don't care. They look like fools, and they look like emotional wrecks. And they were.